I work with hundreds of tuners, helping them grow, market, and navigate their tuning businesses. And what I've learned is that most are leaving a ton of growth potential on the table without even realizing it. I know because I made most of these same mistakes myself. So in this video, I'm sharing 15 things that I wish I knew sooner because they'll make a huge difference in how your tuning business grows. A while back, I sent a poll to thousands of people who either tune for a living or want to tune for a living, asking them what their biggest struggle is, and about 90% of them said it's confidence, which is something I've always struggled with myself. After digging deeper, I found that this breaks down into three main categories. The first is the actual tuning skills themselves. I once watched one of the biggest names of tuners in the drag racing community come to my dyno after being flown in to tune a car. And on the very first pull, he actually melted the tips off of all the spark plugs on probably a $300,000 car that was all brand new. He looked like he just saw a ghost after that. Luckily, they were able to fix it and keep going, but he was rightfully so much more cautious moving forward tuning this particular car than on any of the other cars that I've watched him tune in the past. So the big takeaway is even the most experienced tuners have moments of doubt and they make mistakes. I honestly think that feeling nervous is not only normal, but a good thing, as it shows that you're not complacent. So if you just keep tuning, keep doing more cars, your confidence will grow with time. I think it's, again, perfectly normal when you're new to something to lack the confidence and be worried about anything and everything under the sun. For me, it was actually a great experience to watch how that whole situation unfolded and how it was handled. I've seen things like this in the past get really ugly, and in this case, everybody handled it exactly the way that you hoped that they would. Everybody was extremely professional all the way around. It wasn't uncomfortable at all, which usually that's not how that goes down. The second thing most people seem to struggle with is the social media and marketing side of their businesses, especially when they're new. A lot of people seem to worry about being judged on how they're presenting their stuff, how they're talking, how they look, what they're working on, all of that different stuff, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Keep calling me fat online!
How do they know you're fat?
I don't know how they know I'm fat!
So what I would recommend that you do to overcome this is don't even bother posting on your personal Instagram or Facebook pages or wherever it is that you're posting. I would start business pages, new business pages that you don't tell anybody about. You can also do a YouTube channel as well. All of these platforms, especially when they're business platforms, they actually don't get a lot of views, and the odds of people that you know seeing this stuff is actually very slim unless you send them links and show them directly. So by doing this, you can experiment and you can improve all of your content without the fear of being judged by the people that you know. Your first posts and your first videos, they're all going to be awful. So don't make the mistake that most people do and start a YouTube channel and then immediately post it on your Facebook page and let everybody know about it. If you don't do that, then you get to practice kind of behind closed doors, and you'll continue to get better at making content. Once you feel that your content's good enough, then maybe let people know about it. But I would probably suggest you go a year or two without even bothering to post it on your personal pages, as most people don't really care anyway, honestly. So content is an extremely important part of growing your business. So if you're not already making content like this for your business, I would recommend that you get started as soon as possible. Now, the third thing that people are not confident with that actually kind of surprised me a little bit, it was interesting to learn, is that a lot of people are extremely uncomfortable asking for money early on. So I've never really had this issue. My first introduction to selling stuff when I was probably 11 or 12 years old, flipping used skateboards. I used to save my lunch money and then we'd go into Washington, D.C. and I'd buy lightly used boards from the pros, as they'd only use them once or twice and then they'd sell them. And then I'd take them back to middle school and I'd sell them for a profit. And then all of the money that I got, I'd go back and I'd buy more, and I'd just repeat that process over and over again. Did this for years. So it turns out that was a more useful skill than anything I actually was taught in school, which is kind of funny. So if you're just starting out, I would actually offer to tune cars for free. If you do a good job, you take your time, you keep the customer in the loop during the process. At the end, they will most likely insist on paying you, and that's just going to help you get more comfortable with that whole process. If they don't offer to pay you at the end, you either didn't do a good job, and obviously that's the number one thing that you need to improve, or you just chose the wrong person to work with. Identifying who is right and who is wrong to work with is an entire skill set in itself. That's not what we're going to cover in this video. And if you're struggling to find cars to tune for free, or maybe you're not even comfortable or at that point yet, another way that you can do it is just take some used stuff around the house old car parts, whatever it is, put it on Marketplace and just do these transactions, even if they're for $10 a piece. I can promise you that is going to get you a lot more comfortable with the process of exchanging goods and services for money. It turns out when most tuners think about starting their business, they believe the first step is buying a dyno, but that's actually the last thing I'd recommend, which usually shocks people when I say that. Buying a dyno too early, especially if you're taking out a loan to do so, and just hoping that you're going to find enough customers to cover the payments, is a super risky move that can put you and your business in a really tough spot. In my full-time tuner training, I have probably a couple of hours worth of videos on why and when you should buy a dyno, and why it might be smarter to hold off on buying one, along with comparing all of the different dynos that I've used over the years and which ones I'd consider owning and which ones I'd stay away from and all that good stuff. That training is currently full, but if you want to get it on the waiting list or learn more about it, you can click the link in the description. The true cost of owning a dyno goes way beyond the purchase price. You've got expenses like rent, insurance, maintenance, electricity, interest if you're financing it, plus all of the room that it's going to take up in your shop. If it's a dyno in a pit, that's a big expense. If it's above ground, you got a 4-post lift. Hub dynos are just a little bit more expensive in general. I've seen numerous shops buy a dyno too soon and end up putting themselves out of business as a result of all of the extra costs associated with it. Somehow I've seen so many people think that the money that the dyno generates would just be on top of their current income, and they probably just kind of get too excited about the idea of buying one, and they seem to completely forget that in order to use the dyno, you either have to quit doing something that you're already doing that you're getting paid for, or you have to work more hours. So a lot of people, when they're doing the math in their head, they're like, I make this much, the dyno should bring in this much. It should be easy to cover it. But again, they forget to take out that big chunk of time that they're no longer going to get to spend doing something that they're currently doing. So these days, dynos are everywhere. It seems everybody has one. Simply owning one won't guarantee you business like it used to. So if you're in a position, you have one around where you can rent dyno time, that's a smarter move until you have enough demand to justify buying your own dyno. It should be pretty obvious to know when you're ready to actually purchase one, when you can afford it, when you have the clientele, and when you're kind of busier than what you can keep up with. Now, another thing to keep in mind is with remote tuning being so popular now, you can build a successful business while sitting on the couch in your underwear without needing a shop or a dyno. So be smart when deciding if it's the right time for you to buy a dyno or not. So pricing is always a popular topic, and it blows my mind how few people actually test their prices. When I ask someone how they landed on their pricing for their tuning, I usually hear one of three things. Number one being, that's just what we've always charged. Number two, that's what I'd want to pay. And number three, that's what everybody else is charging. And none of these are necessarily bad answers, I guess, but they're not ideal. And if you're willing to test, pricing becomes more of a simple math problem than anything else. So at a lower price, you're going to sell more tunes. At a mid-range price, you're going to sell fewer tunes, but you're going to make more money per tune. And at a higher price, you're going to sell even fewer, but the margins are larger, at least most of the time. You'd actually be surprised that by raising your prices, a lot of times can actually result in you getting more work because customers assume that you're better, or probably more likely, they don't think that you suck because your price is so cheap. If you're willing to test, once you've got enough data, it's easy to figure out what price point makes the most sense. These are arbitrary numbers, but let's say for the sake of conversation that you sell 10 tunes at $200, you make $2,000. Or you can sell 5 tunes at $500 and you make $2,500. Or you can sell 2 tunes at $750 and you can make $1,500. So with that example, the math kind of makes the decision for you, but you're never going to know this unless you test it. And kind of a bonus tip when it comes to pricing is even if your price was literally $1, you're still going to get people that tell you that you're too expensive. So make sure when you're doing this testing that you get a good sample size. If you tell 100 people your price and 99 of them tell you that you're too expensive, you're probably too expensive. If you tell 100 people your price and 15 people tell you that you're too expensive, I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's the case. This one's a bit deeper, but I'll keep it simple. The majority of small businesses, not just tuning businesses, take a quick picture with their cell phone. They'll upload it to Instagram or Facebook with some unoriginal buzzword-filled caption like, on the dyno making some jam today, and they'll call that marketing. But Well, then what? You just hope and pray that the phone rings? That's kind of the way I thought up until a few years ago. So if this sounds familiar, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to grow your business. Social media posts are just one small part of the bigger marketing picture, and all of these different pieces need to work together. And it's actually kind of mind-blowing when you see the impact it will make on your business when you get this whole system working together correctly. So you absolutely need to post on social media, preferably a lot. You also need to spend time on your posts and videos, probably 10 times more than what you're currently putting in. You need to analyze the data, you need to figure out what works, and you need to do more of that. You need to quit doing the stuff that isn't working. And every post should kind of have a clear purpose and a call to action. And if someone follows that calls to action, you need a plan for what happens next. Like what's going to happen immediately, what's going to happen a week from now, what's going to happen even a month from now or longer. People don't just see one social media post from you and then want to start throwing money at you and your business. Obviously, there's exceptions to this, but at the price point that most tunes cost, Google actually claims that people want to consume 7 hours of video content from you or see 100 image posts before they're ready to spend that kind of money. I can't say that I agree with those numbers 100%, but it's probably somewhat close. Either way, I think it should probably be a big opener compared to how most people seem to think that everything works. I track everything extensively, and when you actually watch all of the things that happen before you gain a customer, it's kind of mind-blowing. So have you ever noticed after visiting a website, you start seeing the ads for that business everywhere? That's not coincidence. It's just kind of part of the whole puzzle. The back-end marketing that happens after the click is crazy for business growth compared to just posting on something and kind of hoping for the best. Another huge misconception that I see that a lot of people have is they think that making a post that goes viral is what you want. A lot of views, shares, comments, and likes, all that's million views, whatever. It literally means nothing if it's not generating customers for your business. So many people just are chasing the wrong things. So just to kind of put that into context, would you rather have a post get 1 million views and generate 1 customer, or make a post that gets 1,000 views and that generates 20 customers? The post that gets 1,000 views is a whole lot easier to duplicate over and over again and continue getting 20 customers at a time. And the 1 million view post is usually just more so luck than anything else. They could literally get 1 billion views, but if it doesn't grow your business, there's no purpose to it. I'm always shocked when I find out how many businesses still don't have a website. I've always thought that having a website was kind of like step number 1. It doesn't need to be fancy or perfect, but you absolutely need one. It plays a huge role in the marketing puzzle that I've been talking about. It makes you look more legit, and it saves you a ton of time from answering the same questions over and over again. And that's only a few of the benefits. Now, for those who do have a website, a common problem that I see is that they basically download the entire Turn 14 catalog and they turn their website into a 600 million item store, and they haven't sold anything on the store in years. So while some businesses have great success selling parts like that through their website, many that I audit have literally never sold anything or maybe just a couple of things. So my kind of take on it is if you don't stock the items or they're not your products, like something that you've created, or you haven't sold it in like the past month, I think it's just distracting from the tuning business that you're trying to grow. So I would recommend just getting rid of all of that. At the end of the day, a crappy website is better than no website at all. You just need something up and running, so don't put it off. So not having an email list is without a doubt one of the biggest mistakes that you can make on this list. And you can't build an email list without having a website, like I just mentioned in the last tip. Kind of one of the main reasons why I think having a website is so important. During one of our recent full-time tuner group calls, someone said, "I can't believe email lists still work." And I just wanted to like smash my computer. That comment basically led to our next call being an 1.5 hour deep dive into how email lists can be used in ways far beyond just sending out emails. We could talk about this for hours, but let's keep it simple for now. At the most basic level, people simply forget that you exist. There's not a person over the age of 3 years old who doesn't know what Coca-Cola is, yet they still spend billions of dollars a year globally on advertising, basically just to remind people that they're there. The same principles apply to your business. If you're not actively staying in front of your audience, they'll totally forget about you. Having an email list is the most intimate and free way to keep reminding people that you and your business are still around. And there are countless strategies for how to effectively and respectfully email your list that are significantly different than the stuff that you're going to post on social media. I'm sure everybody's heard of Motion Raceworks. We'll use them as an example. They send mass emails probably a couple of times a week, if I had to guess. It seems to be about how often I get them anyways. And they do a great job with them. I'm not sure of their exact numbers, obviously, but if they told me that 50% of their revenue comes from email, both directly and indirectly, it wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form, especially when you consider how email lists tie into the next topic, which is paid ads. So one of the biggest mistakes that I've made and one of the biggest regrets that I have when it comes to running all of my different businesses is completely ignoring paid ads or thinking that they weren't necessary. For whatever reason, I always assumed you had to spend a fortune in order for them to work. And I had this weird mindset that running ads made you kind of like lame or something. I don't really know how to explain it, but that was my thinking at the time. Eventually, I decided to learn how it all worked and start running paid ads myself. And my opinion on paid ads couldn't have changed any more drastically after doing so. Paid ads have a lot of components that need to work together in order to make them work effectively, as I've kind of been outlining in this video and will continue to do so. Again, it's all like a giant puzzle. All of the pieces need to work together. The learning curve with paid ads can be pretty steep, but at this point, my honest opinion is running paid ads is probably the single most powerful tool to grow your business that I've ever seen. And it's definitely the fastest way to grow your business if you're willing to put in the time, the effort, and the money on the front end to learn how it all works. I would absolutely go back in time and kick myself straight in the face for feeling the way that I did about paid ads. So don't make the mistake that I did and ignore it. Just once you feel that you're ready, start learning. It is truly amazing how powerful they are. This is something I've seen more in the fabrication world, but it definitely happens in the tuning world too. I see a lot of tuners spending all this time writing their social media posts and content and stuff in a way that seems that it's aimed more at impressing other tuners rather than reaching their actual customers, which really makes no sense. If your goal is to attract people who want you to tune their cars, keep in mind that your audience probably isn't familiar with all the technical tuning lingo and terminology. So writing your post in a way that confuses or bores them isn't going to get you very far. Instead, keep it simple. Make sure your posts are easy to understand, even for someone who doesn't know much about tuning. Remember, if they were experts, they wouldn't need your services. Plus, the other tuners that you're trying to impress are never going to be your customers. So focusing on them is just a total waste of time. I think a lot of this goes back to the very first tip, which was confidence. And by, trying to impress other tuners, they think that, these guys are not going to make fun of them or whatever it is that they're afraid of.
Damn it!
But again, you're just off-putting your customers, so it's not doing you any good. A lot of people think that doing a little bit of everything will keep work continuously coming through the door. And the logic of that sounds right, that if you kind of have a giant fishing net, you're going to catch more fish. But what I found is that in reality, it ends up just being a big giant net with a whole bunch of giant holes in it. And you kind of ultimately end up catching not much of anything. The most successful people that I know in this industry have all had one thing in common, and it's that they specialize in something specific. Very few people seem to be able to do a little bit of everything and be really successful with it. In my opinion, here is why the specialization works. I've said this before, but I feel that tuning is 90% troubleshooting. And when you focus on one platform, you get to know it inside and out. You get to know what the common issues are. You get to know what the things are that people screw up on a regular basis. And you just get to the point where you can solve problems really fast. You can't just build that kind of in-depth knowledge if you're trying to tune every car on the planet. Another benefit is that you can keep parts in stock. Specializing allows you to always have the stuff that you need on hand. It's impossible to keep every part for every car, but you can keep all of the common stuff for one particular platform. And it won't require $1 billion to do that. So by having these parts on hand, it means that you'll have faster turnaround times, less downtimes. If a car's on the dyno having problems, you have what you need to fix it. So if fixing cars and selling parts and selling labor is something that you want to do, by specializing, having those items in stock is going to make it a lot easier for you to generate a lot of extra revenue, again, by having what you need and not having to order it every time. Another benefit is that referrals get way easier. If somebody has whatever platform it is, eventually you will become known as the person for that. So just by default, you get referred. And when people maybe who are referred to you or whatever, they start checking you out, it's just very clear what it is that you do. So for example, if you wanted your race car wired, would you pick the shop that specializes in nothing but wiring race cars? Or would you pick the shop that also works on diesel trucks, paints cars, and remodels kitchens? Even just visually, if you have like a focused Instagram page or a website or whatever with 300 different pictures of cars that you wired in wiring jobs, or you go to the other website and it looks like a hardware store exploded, which one are you going to go to for wiring your car? Should be pretty easy to make that decision. When you get known for one thing or one platform or specializing in something, again, it makes it easier for you to be referred. It makes it easier for people to trust you. They know that you know that platform, and it makes it way more likely to stand out, and you'll actually make you better at doing the job itself too. It's literally a win-win. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, but it's wild how many people don't track any of this, and they have no idea how much money they're actually making. What's that saying? Like, without a goal, you can't score. If you're not tracking your numbers, you might not even realize that your business is in the toilet. Also, if you can set goals and you try to meet those goals, I can say with 100% confidence that you're going to make more money. Several years ago, I had my first daughter. I lost my dad to cancer, and I was working 16-hour days all at the same time. I was completely exhausted, and as a result, I didn't keep up with any of the bookkeeping stuff and just kind of ignored it for most of the year. When I finally sat down and looked at all the numbers when I was working with my accountant, it felt like I got kicked square in the nuts. I was making about half of the money that I thought I was because all of my expenses were so high. If I had just stayed on top of this stuff, even just once a month, I could have course corrected a lot earlier and not basically worked an entire year for nothing. This ultimately led to me making the decision to quit working on cars, quit fabricating, and just focus on tuning. Remember when I said that specializing in something is the way to go? Absolutely, that's the way that this panned out. So not tracking how much you're spending is bad enough, but if you're not tracking where your customers are coming from, how they're finding you, what marketing is working, what marketing isn't, what your conversion rates are, all of that good stuff, then you're potentially costing yourself a fortune. You are for sure doing things the hard way. This one should be its own tip altogether. It's too much to get into this video, but not having and using a CRM to keep all of this data in one place and actually help you do something with all of the data that you're collecting is a gigantic missed opportunity. This one's pretty straightforward and easy, but if your tuning business is legal and legit and not just a side hustle, you need to seriously consider hiring an accountant. I used to use one for end of year tax stuff, then we moved to quarterly, then monthly, and I used the same accounting firm for probably about 10 years. It wasn't terrible, but I never felt like it was good, and I just assumed that switching from one accountant to another accountant would be a nightmare, so I just kept putting it off. Last year, I finally made the switch to a new accountant, and I can't even begin to explain how much stress it's taken out of my life. As a business owner, you should be focusing on the skills that you have to do the job that it is that you do, and the rest of the time should be used to grow your skills on how to actually grow the business. The last thing that you want to do is spend all of your time trying to stay on top of tax laws and changes and payments and deadlines and forms and all that stuff. All of that stuff is basically just torture. I'd say make it a goal to earn enough money to pay a good accountant. It's not cheap, but it's also not that expensive. It seems that if you want to work with an account on a monthly basis, it ends up being pretty similar to like a car payment, but it will seriously change your life significantly more than the car that you would buy for that car payment. Plus, an accountant could potentially save you far more money than what they cost you. I can't tell you how many times I've had my accountants catch a double payment or realize that we're paying for something and not using it. And then obviously all of the actual tax deductions and all of that type of stuff. So I'm sure if you broke it down, what I pay for an accountant and then what I save by having an accountant, it probably evens itself out. There's no way I would ever consider going back to not working with an accountant on a monthly basis. So I sell multiple different forms of education. So if you want to say that I'm biased, that's totally fair. But I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I started investing in myself by paying for different trainings and working with different types of, for lack of better words, we'll call them business coaches. And it has honestly been some of, if not the best money I've ever spent in my entire life. People love to say you can learn anything for free on YouTube and are against paying for anything. And yes, you absolutely can, that's for sure. But when you pay for education, you learn it significantly faster. You skip the expensive trial and error period. And probably most importantly, you stay accountable. And if you're working with some sort of like actual coach, they'll really keep you accountable. None of this happens with the free option. However, if you're not in a position to go down the paid road, I think it's amazing the information that you can get for free, like how I hope that this video is actually helping those of you that have watched it up to this point. So I used to have a credit card, and I'd only use this credit card to buy an expensive tool, and then I'd pay off, the balance, and then I would buy another tool, and I just kind of kept that cycle going. Now I pretty much do the exact same thing, but I do it with different forms of education, and the return on investment isn't even close. A tool will usually help you with one specific task, but the education can be applied to just about anything. I could start a business selling toilets tomorrow.
They replaced your real toilet with a fart toilet?
And everything I've learned from all of the paid education that I've taken could all be applied immediately. So if you're looking to grow your business, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money to invest in yourself to learn how all of it works. There's an endless amount of stuff out there that you need to learn. The faster you can speed that up, the faster you're going to grow your business, guaranteed. Thankfully, this one's improved a bit over the last few years, but there was a time when it seemed that all tuners were just extremely cutthroat. A lot of guys thought that the best way to grow their business was to essentially talk trash about all of their other competition, so to speak. It seemed that they thought that if they just trash talked enough people, that customers would leave that tuner and then magically line up at their door. And sadly, this still does happen to an extent, just not nearly as bad as it used to be. I just feel like this is just such a sad and pathetic way to live. When I first started tuning, there was a shop somewhat local to me that was pretty notorious for this. They told kind of everybody that they could, basically, that they knew would get back to me, that they were going to put me out of business. And basically, it seemed like they made running their mouth about me a full-time job. It's just insane how much got back to me. And at the time, I guess it kind of really did bother me. I just kind of remember thinking, like, what in the hell did I ever do to you to deserve this? It's not like we were, 2 minutes away from each other. There was probably, 45 minutes to an hour away. So there was no reason for any of it. But funny enough, I'm still here, and they went out of business a few years ago. These days, I'm in a group chat with a bunch of other tuners. Most of us work on similar stuff. We refer work to one another depending on what it is, where it is, and all of that good stuff. We all ask questions. We all help each other diagnose problems. And basically, we all help each other out in any way possible. Theoretically, we're all in competition with one another. And rather than just, talking trash and whatever else, we all help each other out. There's more people who need their cars tuned than there are people willing to tune them. So if you can work together with other tuners to, again, help you through scenarios and stuff that you've never been through, I can guarantee you that it's going to work out significantly better for you than trying to talk trash and get work that way. Hell, the slogan that we use for full-time tuners is literally tuners helping tuners. You need people you can run scenarios by, you can get second opinions from, you can lean on when you're stuck. It's really expensive to have to learn every lesson the hard way. And I know that from experience. I could, unfortunately, write a book on that topic. One of the biggest struggles I hear about in full-time tuner is how to navigate the whole work-life balance thing. It's pretty complex. There's a lot of moving parts. But the simplest, quickest, easiest first step to make is to quit using your personal cell phone for business, which it seems that everybody does early on. I get why it's so tempting when you're starting out. Who wants the extra cost of a second phone? But after even a year, your phone number is going to be in so many people's hands that you're going to be getting calls and texts at all hours and always at the most inconvenient times. So the longer you wait, the more people are going to have your number. And eventually, it seems that most people end up just having to get a new personal cell phone number, which is a gigantic pain in the ass. Trust me, whatever it costs to get a second phone line is well worth it, especially if you're married and you want to continue to be married. So even if you think that you're just not going to answer the calls or texts outside of business hours, when you see them pop up on your phone, it's going to totally shift your mindset, and a relaxing Saturday night can quickly turn into stressing out over Monday morning. It's just not worth it. I've actually made the switch to handling all of my business communication through email for numerous different reasons. And there's a lot of my customers that don't like that, but I found that it's what works best for me. Especially early on, getting a new customer can take a tremendous amount of time, effort, money, all of the above. So when you do get a customer, somebody who's already, trusted you enough to work with you, don't let that be the kind of end of the road with them. Stay in touch with them, ask them for a review, maybe even offer them a referral bonus if they can send someone your way. When you're tuning the car, take lots of pictures or videos, or if you're remote tuning, ask them to send you photos and videos of their car. Turn all of that stuff into social media content. That car could help bring in the next 5 or more jobs easily if you are doing what you need to do with all of that stuff. It is super easy to forget about it or be too tired, too rushed, too stressed, whatever. But the content that you can create from the car that you're tuning is literally more valuable than what you're going to get paid to tune the car. So do whatever you got to do to make that happen. Even if half of your customers referred one person to your business, you would grow substantially faster than just trying to get a new customer from ground zero each and every time. Referrals are one of the most powerful tools that you have, so don't miss out on the easiest growth strategy that you've got. This video is a little different than what I usually post. This is exactly the testing I was referring to earlier on being put into action. So if you would like to see more of this type of stuff, let me know. We could easily do 100 different tips like this, and I could elaborate on all of these different tips for days. So if you found this video helpful, check out this video here to avoid making these 15 tuning mistakes that I had to learn the hard way.